Wake Island is an atoll located in the Central Pacific Ocean that held substantial strategic importance after the December 7th, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor, given that it had an airfield and that the nearest inhabited island was around 600 miles away. At that time, American defenses on the island included 6 5-inch coastal defense guns, 12 3-inch anti-aircraft guns, 12 Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighter aircraft, and 450 U.S. Marines. By December 11th, when the first of 2 major Japanese landing attempts took place, air raids had destroyed 8 of the 12 Wildcats. The invasion force consisted of 3 light cruisers, 6 destroyers, and additional supporting ships, along with 450 Special Naval Landing Force troops, essentially the Japanese version of U.S. Marines. American forces saw the lights of hostile ships approaching in the early morning hours and began defensive preparations. By 5:22 a.m., when the Japanese ships began shelling the island, the 4 Wildcats had taken off. There were 3 groups of coastal defense batteries on the island, each with 2 5-inch guns that had a range of 17,100 yards. Wake Island is roughly shaped like the English letter V, with the 3 smaller islets of Peel, Wilkes, and Wake Islands surrounding a central lagoon. All 3 tips of the island each held a 5-inch battery, with Battery A on the southeastern tip of the island near Peacock Point, Battery B on the northern tip on Peel Island, and Battery L on the western tip on Wilkes Island. The light cruiser Yubari, the flagship of the commander of the invasion force, Rear Admiral Sadamichi Kajioka, drew within 4,500 yards of the southwestern side of the island as it continued firing. The defensive batteries withheld their fire until 6:10. It's quite possible that Battery A immediately landed hits on the Yubari, though the ship's report of its actions that day does not mention any. They also struck Patrol Boat 33, one of the 2 ex-destroyers in the invasion fleet that was modified to launch a landing craft. Battery L landed a hit on one of the armed merchantmen supporting the invasion, which drew a few destroyers in closer to its position. It then struck the Hayate at 6:52, causing it to explode and sink within 2 minutes, becoming the first Japanese warship to be lost during the war. Battery L also managed to hit the destroyers Oite and Mochizuki. Finally, Battery B engaged in a substantial artillery duel with 3 destroyers and 2 light cruisers, which managed to destroy one of its guns. However, it also hit the destroyer Yayoi. Shortly after 7 o'clock, the Japanese invasion force began to retreat due to the successful counter-fire of the defensive batteries and heavy seas that made a landing difficult. The Wildcat fighters had been loitering overhead during the naval shelling of the island and now turned their attention toward the retreating forces, attacking them using the pair of 100-pound bombs that each fighter carried and strafing them with their machine guns, causing damage to the light cruiser Tenryu and armed merchantman Kongo Maru. They managed to hit the destroyer Kisaragi with at least 1 bomb, causing it to later explode and sink at 7:30. Finally, at around 9:15, 17 Japanese bomber aircraft arrived over Wake Island to strike its defensive gun batteries. 2 were shot down by the Wildcats. This was the only time during World War II that coastal defense guns successfully repelled an amphibious assault. The Japanese continued to send bombing raids to Wake Island over the next 10 days. On December 23rd, they made a second invasion attempt with a much larger force that included 2 aircraft carriers and 1,500 landing troops, which was successful. All told, by the end of the battle, the Japanese had lost 4 ships, a submarine, and around 1,000 soldiers, with only about 120 of the island's defenders killed. The actions of the American forces on Wake Island, especially their successful repulsion of the December 11th invasion attempt, provided a major morale boost for a country still reeling from the Pearl Harbor attack.